For those of you who don't know, I, despite being fully vaccinated at the end of last week, suddenly came down, like literally, like that, with hard shaking chills. And I was fully vaccinated. I didn't even think, maybe it's COVID, didn't even cross my mind. Hard shaking chills, and within about another half an hour after that, I had a high fever, like 103. That was last Friday. And I was like, holy crap, this could be COVID. So I quit everything, went home, set up for I alerted my staff. I said, I think this could potentially be COVID. So just until I find out, I'll talk to you guys about precautions in a minute. But I got tested the next morning, Saturday morning, and sure enough, it was breakthrough COVID. So those of you who don't know me, I am a facial plastic surgeon. The beard lost, by the way. The super vote came through, so it was time to get rid of that. I'm not a beard guy. I could have grown one when I was single, theoretically, but they just don't grow evenly on me. They don't look great on me. So it was a fun thing to do while I was at home. But so for those of you who don't know me, I'm a facial plastic surgeon. Before that, I was a doctor, still am. Before that, I was a molecular biologist. And so all this stuff, this whole last year and a half, as horrible as it's been, has been, for me professionally, very interesting just to watch evolve. And it has been an evolution. There's been lots of flip-flopping and back and forth, and that's just because that's why science research progresses, is we like to figure out what's true, and then, well, maybe that's not true, and maybe that's not true, and we're seeing a lot of that right now. So on this journey, I have, ever since the beginning, talking with you guys about what mRNA viruses are. When I got my vaccinations, I was very involved with you guys. I told you, okay, here's what I'm getting. This is the one I'm getting. I got the Pfizer vaccine. I got the first dose at the beginning of January and the last dose at the end of January. Someone said a large number of breakthrough cases are vaccinated. That's actually the definition of a breakthrough case. If you haven't been vaccinated, it's not a breakthrough case. Anyway, I got both my doses in January, right on schedule. And as the spring went on, and as vaccinations went on, and as the CDC released guidance saying that vaccinated people don't need to mask around each other anymore, my personal attitude, which used to be last April, May, June, you ask any of my friends, I was neurotic. I wouldn't go in houses. I was wearing masks everywhere because at that point there was no viable treatment. No one was immune, and the lethality rate was higher, frankly. Still a terrible disease now. But anyway, the spring, summer, May, when the CDC guidance was that there's no longer any need to mask if you're among other immune people indoors, other vaccinated people indoors. Boy, my life turned around. It was awesome. For about 2.5 months there, we were back in 2019. Dinner parties, domestic travel, tons of fun. What we know about vaccines, the COVID vaccine presently, I still believe to be true. And so the claim is 95% effective against wild type or just normal COVID. 88-ish% effective against the Delta variant. And Delta in this case doesn't mean gene deletion Delta, it just means alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Fourth variant that they found. They've stopped naming them after places, they're just letter numbering them. So what does effective mean? Well, they mean at keeping you out of the hospital or dying. So right now I'm in Missouri. We're in the bottom quartile of immunization in the country right now. And our southwest part of the state had a real hot spot of Delta variant. And so that southwest hotspot pretty much overwhelmed their local smaller hospital systems, and we have some of their admits here in the city. But just in community spread, it's been spreading a little bit. And I don't know if I got Delta or got the regular, because the tests don't necessarily always test for that. That's looking for a particular antigen, which is a product of a particular gene, one or the other. And I just got tested for COVID, so I don't know which one it was. But I know that despite being a breakthrough case, it worked in the case of I was better, and when I say better, I mean normal, 60 hours later. I went down hard Friday afternoon, super sick, 103.1 fever, 140 pulse rate, just lying flat on my back. And for medical people, that's sick. I'm going to talk to you about medications in a little bit here, but I didn't take anything. Just slept about 20 hours a day, stayed hydrated, and within 60 hours, not only did I not have been in the hospital, I'm almost 50, I was completely fine. No further fevers after Sunday morning, actually. Energy 100% back to normal. No like lingering fuzziness or lingering energy issues. I mean, I missed Saturday Q&A. That was the worst offense that I had this weekend. But other than that, it's remarkable. And so when they say what they're judging their criteria is, are you, what is it? Either mild or asymptomatic disease. And so I was kind of hoping if I got it, it was going to be asymptomatic, right? That's the best way to get it. I was kind of hoping I already had it. But what I had, believe it or not, 103 fever, feeling really terrible for a day and 2 days, 2.5 days, that's considered mild disease. Because the definition of mild, at least that I was able to come across in doing some reading recently for you guys, mild is anything that doesn't require supplemental oxygen. So since I was at home, I had my little pulse ox, my oxygen level is perfect. By definition, I had mild disease. Moderate disease is you need oxygen supplementation. And severe COVID disease is you need respiratory support, ventilator, positive pressure, or something like that. So I had a breakthrough infection. I have a new respect for breakthrough infections. We'll talk about that here in just a minute, and then we'll take a bunch of questions. But I also have a new respect for what a mild case is, because I like to think, gosh, if that's a mild case and my immune system is able to spool up in 60 hours and kill it, I don't want to know what a normal case would have been in my case, because I fell so hard just in 2 hours that I'm just guessing, but I'm pretty confident that if I didn't have that immune head start from my injections in January, I might not be doing nearly this well. I know I wouldn't be doing this well at this moment. So thoughts that I'm sharing with you, everyone's got their own opinions on this. This is just from living it, from my medical and science background. This is kind of how I feel and what I've been experiencing. Some interesting things about breakthrough disease. I got these things from my genius uncle, and I actually have a lot of genius uncles, but this is my mom's brother. He is an internal medicine doctor. He's a 4th generation physician in his family, and both of his daughters are physicians now too. So they're 5th generation physicians in that family. He is an internal medicine professor at a fancy medical school in the Middle East now. He's taught all over the world for 30 plus years, and he has studied to death COVID and its totally apolitical stuff, just the actual disease, how it works in your body, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to do a live with him in the next week or so you can hear him talk. But he told me my case was very typical for a breakthrough infection. And so, for instance, I didn't lead off with inability to smell or inability to taste. I came right down with chills and fever. I had no GI symptoms, maybe a twinge of nausea once, but that was it. That's also very typical for a breakthrough infection. Super short course, typical for a breakthrough infection. Technically mild, typical. But now I have, the only symptoms I have left is yesterday I developed taste and smell disturbance. I don't smell very well at all, and my taste is a little weird. If I talk a lot, which I talk a lot, sometimes I'll get a tickle in my throat and start coughing. But that happens every time I get over a cold. I have kind of an asthmatic situation going on, so I get reactive every time I get after a cold. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about medication, and we'll just kind of go, let's take some questions, and I'll talk about medication. So scrolling up here, hello from Argentina, fantastic. Let's see, 40% breakthrough case rate in Israel, says Kevin C. Hey, Kevin. So thank you for that. Let's see what else. Glad you're better. First time having COVID. As far as I know, first time having COVID. I guess it's technically possible I could have had an asymptomatic infection before or after vaccination. but I've been tested, I don't know, 25 times in the last 20 months, and this is the only time I've tested positive. So in my opinion, it's probably the first time. Yes, Lucy, I already shaved it. Yes, I'm back. I'm going to be back in the office. So now, what do you need to do? Let's say you and I ran into each other, and then later I came down with COVID. The current recommendations for me are to stay home and quarantine. This is where I am. To stay home and quarantined for 10 days from the onset of symptoms, or if it were an asymptomatic case, 10 days from the test. But for me, I had a sudden onset of symptoms, so I know exactly when that was. And at least 3 days of consecutive no fevers. And so by the time I go back to work, I got really lucky. I was scheduled to be on vacation for most of this week anyway. So I sent my family on vacation. I stayed home, and I only had to cancel 2 days, and I will meet that 10 days of isolation from first symptoms. And by the time I go back to work, it's going to be almost 8 days, 8 days since I've had a fever. So I got really lucky on that. Now, if you were exposed to someone that tested positive, if the current recommendation is if you are fully vaccinated, you just need to monitor for symptoms. They don't necessarily recommend you going, like in the beginning of the pandemic. If you're fully vaccinated, they don't recommend that you get tested. You can if you want to. They say monitor for symptoms. If you are not fully vaccinated and you're exposed to someone that converts, they recommend all the stuff they used to. Quarantine, get tested, all that kind of stuff. So let's see. Vaccine coverage lasts only 6 months from what I've heard. So there was an article in The Lancet on July 15th that went viral just literally 16 hours ago or 24 hours ago in the kind of doctor web. And it shows that the Pfizer vaccine in particular and the AstraZeneca vaccine, that the immune antibody response really fades pretty significantly over the first 3 months or so. And so there is going to be, I believe, a significant push for a third injection, for a booster of the booster, if you will. Now, obviously, your body still remembers how to make new antibodies, because I think that's what happened with me was, I had some to help at the beginning, but the virus was winning for the first day and a half, 2 days, and then my immune system came ramping back up. But it would be nice if I had more circulating antibodies right up front, and that's what that third dose should be helpful with. But hello, Smooth Med Spa, you're exactly right. There is actually evidence building to support that we probably are not good with just 2, and that has been suspected for a long time. And this is kind of one of the sciencey things. We don't know how long immunity lasts, either natural or immune after this disease, because it's a new disease. So we are learning as we go, and that makes answers change as we go. And that's not because people are changing things to be willfully misleading. They're changing things so they're not willfully misleading. As soon as you find a new truth, you say that new truth. That's how it works. Let's see. I want to do my chin with you. I'm ready. I'm a little backed up, but start planning about a year before you want your surgery. Glad you're feeling better. Thank you. I feel perfect. Completely normal. I had COVID in November. I still don't have my normal smell and taste back. Okay, so there is a little bit of, I did my ENT residency before I did facial plastics. So my ENT buddies believe that the smell organ is potentially directly disrupted by COVID, but the taste buds don't have an ACE2 receptor on them, so they're not directly disrupted. So they think that there's an inflammatory component. There's an inflammatory component to all of COVID. And so some of the forward thinkers are using Flonase nasal spray over the counter to create a little anti-inflammatory effect in the nose to try to maybe cool down some of those olfactory cells. I thought, you know what, I'm going to just try it. Because the other thing, there are other inflammatory conditions that happen with COVID. You probably heard of the myocarditis and that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, as long as I lost my taste and smell, I have some kind of inflammatory condition going on. I'm not recommending this to anyone. You should discuss it with your own doctor. The only medications that I've actually taken related to this is once a day or two had passed since my fever, and I developed that smell and taste disturbance. I started a prednisone pack, a Medrol dose pack. I started that yesterday, and I'll take 6 days worth of it. I'm taking Pepsid with it to help protect my stomach from the steroid. But I'm hoping that will improve and maintain taste and smell more quickly. And if there's any other little random inflammatory events going on around my body, let's say tendency towards myocarditis or any of the other things that we think about being inflammatory COVID related, I think it could do nothing but help. But again, that's not normal therapy. That's the only medications I've taken. Is after everything was all done, I felt totally fine. I started the prednisone pack and then Pepsid just to go with the prednisone pack. Let's see. What else we got? I lost my comments. Good grief. I promise I'm Indian. I'm better with tech than this. Here we are. Did I have Delta? I don't know if I had Delta or not. That test is not routine. Just when you get your COVID diagnosis on the street corner CVS, which is where I got mine, they don't routinely test for variants. They test for do you have it or not. Have I been able to keep my family feeling well? So they have been out of the house, which is just perfect. I knew it was COVID before I got tested positive, so they went on the vacation we were scheduled to. I stayed home, and now that they're back, we're fortunate to have a large house. I stay in one part of the house, they stay in another part of the house. I'm in a mask anytime I leave my little segment. Let's see. Appreciate you sharing your experience. Hey, what's up? Gypsy Jesus Girl is one of my very good friends. She actually used to work for us. What's up, Chris Maggs? She's amazing. You should follow Corn Dog Caravan. Corn Dog Caravan, that's her account. They're awesome. What city? I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. You're welcome for sharing. Is Delta fake? No. Lots of people in India, including several of my relatives, died from it. So it's not fake. So Delta is... They used to name variants by what cities or countries they were kind of dominant in. And so Delta is the variant that was dominant in India, and then came through by way of UK and then into the States. And right now, Southwest Missouri is a Delta hotspot. What were my initial symptoms? Hard shaking, chill, fever. What did I take for medications? We talked about that. Do I know how I got it? I got it because we're in a global pandemic. You can try. If it's possible that some people just remember the actual sick person they're with, and then 4 days later, boom, there it was, or 9 days later. What's more likely is I picked it up on all three at the grocery store. This is more people. It is unlikely that you know anyone that has not been exposed to this disease. That's just the definition of pandemic. So I don't know the particular person I got it from. Even if I thought I did, I don't know that I'd be right, because I've probably been exposed to, in the span of 18 months, I've probably been exposed to hundreds of people that were contagious. Let's see, what else? Glad you're better. Whole family had COVID. I was the only one feeling great, just a cough. Everyone else had a high fever. Very weird how it affects everyone differently. It sure does. Let's see, what else? Do you think travel is okay with vaccine and masks? I think you got to live your life. So let's talk a little bit about masks. I was all mask all the time before I got vaccinated. All mask all the time. Absolutely neurotic. When I got vaccinated, there was, to me, a sense of freedom. Still risk, but at some point you have to live your life. And 2 weeks ago, I would have, and I did, look at people that were in a vaccinated crowd with other vaccinated people and still wearing their mask, and kind of look at them and just in my brain just say, that's a little over the top. Like, to wear a mask even though you and everyone else is vaccinated. Now that I've had this experience, it changed my opinion a little bit. Am I going to wear a mask going forward now that I'm vaccinated and I've also had COVID if I'm in a room with other vaccinated people? I'm probably not, unless the local ordinance requires it. Just because, again, you got to live your life, and there's some degree of risk you may be willing to take. And that's a degree of risk that I have been and would continue to be willing to take, is to take a risk of being with a bunch of vaccinated people unmasked. But now I better understand the mindset of people who were not willing to take that risk. If I had been that ultra conservative despite being vaccinated. I can't promise you I wouldn't have come down with it on Friday, but I can't argue for sure that I wouldn't have. I think there'd be some benefit. So, you know, there's room for personal choice and personal decision here as far as that kind of thing goes. Another interesting thing is you probably all heard this, the people like me that get it being vaccinated typically don't end up in the hospital. Our current hospitalized population is well over 99% unvaccinated. So again, I'm happy I did. But there's more to the disease and the cost of the disease than did you die or not die? Did you get to the hospital and not get to the hospital? So, you know, this disease will force me out 10 days. Now, thankfully, I was already scheduled off for 8 of those 10 days. But if any of you have had surgery with me or done a quote with me or any of that kind of stuff, a full day of my time is not an insignificant expense, and it takes 8 dedicated employees, 5 operating room team members and 3 console coordinating members just to tend to me. Oh, and an anesthesia person. 9 dedicated employees every day tend to just me. That's not counting the associate people like the medical assistants and the admin people and the receptionists that help all of us. I'm talking about 9 dedicated people just for me. So I'm stranding 9 dedicated people just while I get better. And I'm totally fine. But there is a cost just to that. So I think sometimes we think of disease as an all or nothing. Well, at least they lived in the end, they're fine. But you know what the number one most costly disease, I don't know if it still holds true with COVID, but prior to COVID was the most costly disease? Sinusitis. Because it cost the number one amount of missed work. When I say most costly in terms of like missed work. And so you think, oh, it's just sinuses. But if we could eradicate sinusitis, our economy would go up. So it's an interesting thing. Let's see where else. How long does natural immunity last? Absolutely no one knows. And I wish I knew. I know people that have had natural COVID and then been re-sick. So, but I don't know. Do I support monoclonal antibody treatment for COVID, and would I have been open to it? So let's talk about what monoclonal antibody treatment is. So the answer is 1, I do support it. So antibodies are little tags that your immune system latches on to foreign objects. Those tags act as little beacons for other things to come in and destroy. So it's like putting a flare on a invading car so that the overhead drone can drop a bomb on that flare, right? And so for people that have not yet been vaccinated, or they don't have a very good immune system that's good at making those little flares and sticking them to the cars, you can give them a bunch of flares that were made in a laboratory. That's a monoclonal antibody. So it's an antibody that was made in a lab, ready to go, and you give it to the person, and it tags the COVID for that person so that their white blood cells can come in and bomb that COVID. I know people that have been saved by that. So our former president, President Trump, was saved by that. I believe he would have died without that treatment. Juicy J, my very, very good friend and the best scrub tech I've ever worked with, no offense to anyone else who's listening, both her parents are elderly and both her parents had COVID and were not doing very well. And they had monoclonal antibody therapy and it turned them around in a day. So I fully support it. Problem with it is it's very expensive and it's limited. And I didn't go looking for it because I got better fast. So I think it should be reserved for people who actually need it. Let's see. Will I need the booster shot? I would get it. Yeah, absolutely. Did I get vaccinated? I sure did. Let's see. Only get the vaccine 3 months after symptoms resolution. Yep, that is the recommendation. Exactly. How long does immunity last for Moderna? So the paper I'm referring to, it had AstraZeneca and Pfizer in it. I'm going to announce when my super genius uncle and I can arrange to do this talk together live. We'll have a bunch of these questions put together, and I'll have him address it because he's much smarter with this general type of stuff than I do. So I'm here mostly to tell you about my experience, and then to delve into the science a little better, we're going to wait till we have the super smart guy here. My excellent friend and mentor John Holds, eyelid MD STL. Unfortunate that the humans typically have a weak and incomplete immunity to coronaviruses. That is what we know to be true. That's why you can catch the common cold 2, 3, 4, 9 times in a row, even though there aren't unlimited numbers of cold viruses. So let's see. I'm going to skip over some of the super sciencey questions again, just because I will do a dedicated live with the smart guy coming here later. Did I take anything natural, says Kevin. So I've been taking vitamin D, so I kept on that. But other than that, no, I didn't take anything natural. Please save this discussion. Yes, so I'm going to save this, and it's actually going to be the Instagram live post I do tomorrow. It is going to be my post for tomorrow. So let's see. Where's my facial hair? The super vote came in, and the facial hair went out. What else do we have? How did I know not to go to a hospital with such a high fever? That's an excellent question. So I am otherwise perfectly healthy, and I have a good sense for what treatments there are available and what constitutes truly sick and not sick. So I felt horrible, and a fever of 103.1. At one point I hit 103.5 is a bad fever. At that point I took a gram of Tylenol. So there's one other medication I took. I took 1 dose of Tylenol once. I kind of like fever as an infection fighter. I think the hypermetabolic state is a real thing. It exists for a reason, and so I don't treat just every fever I get just to treat it. So aside from the fever, I really didn't have anything else that a hospital would have treated. I was eating and drinking just fine. My consciousness was just fine. My blood pressure was just fine. I had a little pulse ox at home. My breathing, oxygen level at room air was just fine. There really wouldn't have been anything that a hospital could have done for me at that point. So I didn't go because I had no particular risk factors, and there was nothing I was going to get when I showed up there. Now, if I had gone the wrong direction, instead of getting rapidly better, well, I'd absolutely, if my oxygen level would have gone down, I absolutely would have gone in. Did I try and get the antibody treatment? I did not, as you just heard a minute ago. Let's see, what else we got? Suggested mask. Have I been able to keep Rocky safe? Rocky is safe. Suggested mask, whatever's comfortable. Whatever you will wear, I think is the best, honestly. If it's something that's theoretically amazing, but you're not going to put it on, then pick something you're going to wear. That's my favorite. What else do we have? Is my staff fully vaccinated? No, my staff is not fully vaccinated. The vast majority are, but there are fights that I'm willing to pick, and there are fights that I'm not willing to pick. I am an interesting office. I have a retail office, so we are not an office taking care of sick people. We're like a beauty salon in a lot of ways. We are an office where people come in perfectly healthy, or like the grocery store. And in the local beauty salon, the local grocery store, there is no mandate to fully vaccinate those teams. Now, if you're in a hospital full of people that are already ill, either chronically or acutely, I can understand a hospital making a mandate like that. So I save my knockdown, drag-outs, potentially lose amazing people for where they need to be. Let's see. Do I know the heavy metal content of the COVID vaccine? I do not know the heavy metal content. I could look it up, and we can actually find out here when we talk to my uncle shortly, in a few days. But it's got to be negligible. People sticking magnets to their arms afterwards, that is completely fake. So I cannot imagine there is any significant, maybe there's a hint of mercury. There's sometimes thimerosal in vaccines, but I doubt it in this modern one. Even if there was, I'm perfectly comfortable. I get exposed to more heavy metal just breathing fumes. You know where I get the most heavy metal? I get the most lead in my diet from Mexican hot sauce. I love spicy things, love them. And I hope I can taste spicy again soon. But Mexican chili peppers are grown out in the fields and dried in the sun, and they burn a lot of leaded gas in Mexico. And so leaded gasoline in the rain and in the dust and in the soot lands on Mexican chili peppers. And if you like El Yucateca, or you like Salsa Valentin, or you like chalupa, it's not chalupa, I can't remember what it's called. It's a little wooden cap. Mexican hot sauces have, and I don't know for sure those brands, you can look them up for yourself, so I don't want to get in trouble, but many of the well-known Mexican hot sauces, maybe not those exact three, but many of them have super high lead content. And I still eat Mexican hot sauce. I've had COVID before, no. Oh, there's Chris. My in-laws had the antibodies infusion, 92 and 81 years old, and it worked for them. Those are the people the antibodies should be reserved for, 100%. Can I speak to knowledge of the vitamin D level correlation? Yeah, so one of my best friend's husbands actually did that paper at University of Chicago. Not best friend, but a best friend in medical school. Vineet Arora, she is now the director of medical education at University of Chicago. She is a powerhouse woman in medicine. Her husband David did that study, and that became real popular in April or May of 2020. And it was just shown that people with higher serum vitamin D levels had easier courses. Let's see. Do I think kids should be vaccinated? Are mine? My children are vaccinated. Yeah. My son actually got COVID. He was, if anyone was more neurotic about hygiene and everything than any other kid, it was him. But again, it's a global pandemic. Not everything is completely escapable, even if you take all the actions you think you should. So he had it, and then he still got vaccinated after he had it. Let's see. So correct. Let people be febrile. Yeah, I think fever actually has a biological role. When did I have COVID for the first time? Friday. And that was it. Friday through Sunday, and I'm doing all the public health stuff, staying out of the public until I've met all the criteria. But I feel totally fine. Let's see. Just jumped in, coming for a chemical peel. I love our chemical peels. I love our esthetician troupe. They're amazing. And inquired about a rhinoplasty. I'd be happy to help you at any time. What else? How long is the waiting list for services right now? It takes about 5 months right now to get a consultation, and we do have a screening process that by the time people wait 5 months for a consultation, we want to make sure that that you're an actually good candidate and you get everything you expect and nothing you don't expect. So we do a screening process. After the consultation, it's about 7 more months right now for surgery. So I would tell you about a year before you really want surgery, you need to start reaching out to us and getting serious about it. Do I foresee requiring patients to be vaccinated in order to be surgical candidates? This is an excellent question. It's almost back to the staff one. There are only so many fights that I'm willing to pick. And so if you have general anesthesia within 7 weeks of COVID, it has been shown that your mortality as a patient, your chance of death as a patient, is higher. So we don't use general anesthesia ever, but I'm just going to just equate that to all anesthesia. I'm going to say that if you get anesthesia within 7 weeks of having COVID, it is probable that you have a higher risk of complications. So I do not require all my patients to be vaccinated, but my unvaccinated ones, up until this point, I have required testing. When we were not able to get day of surgery testing, we got it outsourced. Now we can do day of surgery testing, and I require it for the patient's own well-being. If they are sick and don't know it, and I put them under, their chance of something bad happening is higher, and that is proven. So that's the only reason I require it. So I don't require vaccination, but I need to know their status before we put them to sleep, as far as are they sick or not. Kevin loves hot stuff too, man. You and I, next time I come to Vegas, Kevin, we're going to meet in person. Kevin Cease is a phenomenal medical illustrator. He's an absolute genius, and he's the coolest dude. And he is in Vegas, and I go to Vegas a few times a year. Actually, I'm gonna be there in September, Kevin. So we got to meet up. Let's go eat some hot stuff. Let's see. What do I think of ivermectin? I don't know enough about it, but let's ask my uncle. So again, I'll put a warning, not a warning. I'll put a notice up when we get that set. What do hot sauces have a high lead content? Because the chilies are sun-dried in the sun in an environment where they burn a lot of leaded gasoline. So the environment, the air, has got a lot of lead in it. How much vitamin D do I take in a day? I take the once a week stuff, and I take the one pill it tells me to take. So I don't know off the top of my head what that is. Do I believe in medical freedom with vaccines? This is more of a talk that I think that's a philosophical talk. I'm talking mostly about medicine right now, so we're gonna skip on that one. I think medical freedom has implied connotations just in the form of the question. The Midwest noises. Yep, we got them all. What else do we have here? Higher risk for twilight. I don't know, but I'm going to assume that, again, since general is higher risk, I'm just going to carry that across all anesthesia. That's all I got for now. So I'm going to hang out for another minute or two, take any other questions that you guys have, but the bottom line is this. Got it. Don't ever want it again. Thankful I got over it so quickly. That's it. that's all I need. That's all I have to tell you. I will put, like I said, a recording of this onto my IGTV tomorrow. I'm going to download this unless it for some reason breaks on me, and then I will get it saved and captioned ideally, and put up so you can share this with friends. I promise you, this is an important thing. I promise you that something I said today, I either misspoke or I'm going to believe is wrong anytime between 1 day and 1 year from now. So I'm going to say that again. I promise you that something I said today, I either said wrong, I don't actually even believe that right now, but I misspeak a lot. I'm very extemporaneous and I'll say something I didn't really mean to say, or the opposite. Or something I said today, several things probably, I believe them firmly right now. And with new information, I'm going to be opened up again and think the exact opposite, anywhere from 12 hours to 12 years from now. So I am going to save the video, but I want you to keep in mind that old news is old news. And as of tomorrow, this video is going to be old news. All right, guys, have a great evening. Thanks for following along.